Our reading today is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4. Jesus had just been teaching to large crowds and is now transitioning across the Sea of Galilee. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in a boat, just as he was. Other boats were with him. A great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, "Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Lying back on a cushion, the sound of fresh water clapping with a thump against the side of a small wooden bowl. The breeze ever so faintly spraying the mist from the waves over the sides, cooling his face as he sleeps. The sun throwing its last heat of the day more across the water than from above. The world is slowing down. For all we know, there may have been a six-pack of wineskins rolling around in the boat, and the faint singing of exhausted people that often follows a long day together. But then something breaks through. There is the sudden stench of a fishing vessel that has held fish all day in the hot sun too many times. It is accompanied by an overpowering smell of people with body odor that is days, weeks in the making. The sun that was once warming is now angry and red from the dirt in the air, and the waves are drenching the clothes of everyone aboard. He is now standing, startled and maybe bewildered, saying, "Where is this news button?" Perhaps it went like this. People were yelling in fear, bucketing water back overboard, saying, "Where did this wind come from? Is this how it ends? Are we like seeds thrown carelessly into the water? I thought we were the good soil." Then Jesus cries out above the chaos, above the doubt, above the fear and remorse that comes with life leaving unfinished, "Peace, be still." Jesus seems to know what's going on. The wind and the waves are nothing new. He doesn't seem to be worried at all, sleeping, while everyone else was scrambling for their lives. But what does he know that they don't? Stay with me. We're going to do a little bit of a jogging exercise through the Hebrew Bible. First, in Nahum, he says that the Lord is very patient but great in power. The Lord's way is in the whirlwind and storm. Clouds are the dust of the Lord's feet. Jeremiah says that at the sound of God's voice, the heavenly waters roar. God raises the clouds from the ends of the earth. God sends the lightning with the rain, the wind from God's treasures. I mean, this is no easy wind at our back that they're talking about. This is a driving wind that begs for the shelter that Isaiah promises will come with righteous and just leadership in chapter 32. Getting even closer, Ezekiel warns of those that have cried peace when there is no peace. And he says, in a fury, God is said to respond and make a storm wind break out, and in anger there will be flooding and a consuming wrath. God will be the wind that fights against the chaos created by those wanting a false peace. So, what if the wind not only causes the very sea to boil with an energy that can be destructive, but also pushes back against that same destruction, setting it in its place like the whirlwind in Job 38. The sea is seen there as bursting forth from the womb, threatening all of creation. Full of dangerous potential, but ultimately confined behind doors by Yahweh. There is God, the whirlwind, saying to the deep, "You may come this far, no further. Here your proud waves stop." Some of us may see this kind of turmoil played out on a regular basis. Looking at St. Louis, sometimes it feels like that chaos is here. For many ministers in St. Louis, if they are not already too familiar with the precarious place of standing amongst the consistent violence levied against black lives and holding their ground, they are becoming more familiar now. Some may not be there yet. The ones that are engaged seem to know what the image in Mark's gospel is getting at. Ministers are being arrested for refusing to be silenced, for refusing to back down, for claiming that black lives really do matter. Real bullets are flying. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason. Take the shooting of police officers on March 5th. Sometimes, in situations like that, it seems that violence has no real origin or destination. Violence is bursting at the seams with such force that it almost appears to come out of nowhere. That is the kind of chaos that Jesus and his followers were up against, bubbling up from the very place they were standing. The work that ministers are engaged in is not without consequences for their ministries either. Their congregations often urge them to not get too involved, that this isn't the kind of attention we want. Some of our colleagues in seminary know this personally, and our own dean faces these same forces from clergy at all levels and even from students wanting her to step back. Many of you feel that same pressure, even if it's not openly stated. In that place, it can be difficult at times to distinguish what is the aggression of the wounded but still powerful behemoth of persistent violence, and what is friendly fire coming back in your face, calling for an unearned peace. I mean, there is no cover from this storm when you are exposed and vulnerable in the middle of the sea, except maybe for that persistent wind. Sometimes I don't feel that I'm ready for that. I don't feel that I'm ready to stand in those places. Maybe I will never be. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not sure if I'm prepared to stand in that space, in that time when it comes. And I'm sure that you have some of the same fears of being thrown into situations that you are woefully unprepared to handle. But Jesus knew that in the midst of the turmoil, God was present, and God is present. For those ministers that we see in the middle of the fray, maybe even the kind of ministers we see ourselves becoming, it would be nice to know what Jesus knew. The question is, for us, will we be able to handle that kind of presence if God shows up? When that presence shows up in the very person we thought we were, and the calling we thought we understood is being tossed into confusion. But maybe the better questions are less specific. What are we scared of? Well, physically, and even more so existentially. What exposes our fear of people finding out who we really are? Or us discovering for ourselves who we really are? We come to the task of ministry with a general measure of hope. A desire to get it right, or at least something close to it. To get this task figured out for ourselves, for others, and for God's sake. We've gotten more than we bargained for. And Jesus was asleep, and the others in the boat were panicking. They didn't recognize the presence of God when they experienced it mixed up with the turmoil that came with it. They were setting sail on this water in order to venture to the other side of the sea, going to a new and unfamiliar place. The followers of Jesus knew where they were going. And they were willing to go there, knowing it would not be easy, but they were apparently not really ready for it. They were not ready for God to show up in that way, in that wind. They were not ready for the difficult wind that leaves you wondering if you are going to make it through the experience. And they certainly were not able to see the same wind holding the chaos back from finishing them off completely. I mean, you and I find ourselves in a very similar boat. Not always sure that this thing called ministry is really something that we can even do. We doubt ourselves, and we often miss the fact that this tension is exactly where God is. This place and time we find ourselves in, of questioning and testing, challenging and fomenting, this place of wonder and bewilderment, reflection and exhaustion. This is the kind of place we just might find God. Your sign that God is with you. And we need it, because we will not remain for long unscathed. And we need to be ready for the God we are supposedly taking with us into the future. The question really is, will we breathe in the full wind of God's breath in our nostrils, knowing that the boiling sea may come along with that life-giving breath? That same life we are given and are called to pass along to the next person is not easy. It is full of unwieldy creativity that heightens the senses, but it still holds the feeling. And that feeling persists that this promise of life may have alongside of it the real potential to pull us under completely. But if we stand up with the full wind all around us and the raging seas at our feet and live into our calling, that is exactly where God will meet us. If we stand up with the wind at our backs so strong that it feels as if we are going to topple forward, we might be right where we belong. If we stand up with God's voice howling in our ears, if we stand up and claim this place, this space of wonder and beautiful danger, God will be among us, right in the middle of the storm, where our standing up really matters, where our churches need us to be, pushing them and pushing us beyond what is comfortable, even and especially when we are being tossed by the waves. Amen.
Amen.